It's good to be back, man.
It is good to be back. Well, hello and welcome to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. My name is Kyle.
My name is Brian.
And we are so glad to be here and talking great tunes from the year 2006. Brian and I are going to be counting down each of our top 5 albums from the year 2006 today, and we could not be more psyched about it.
We're so psyched. We're debuting some new facial hair. Kyle's got a little more thickness. I got a little mustache.
Ooh. The mustache is nice, man. You got to be bold to go the mustache, and it works.
See, it's a stash and patch. If you lose the patch, it gets a little weird.
Well, you're a dad now, so I think you're allowed to have a mustache and it not be weird, right?
Totally, man.
I've never done the mustache by itself, but I have done just the goatee by itself, and it looks really bad.
I feel like that's old-timey. That was probably popular in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Speaking of the early 2000s, that's what we talk about.
All the time, every day. We're living in the past, and we love
it.
Yeah. Well, before we get started, Brian, I was feeling really guilty because, last time we talked our top 5 from 2005, and I forgot one of my honorable mentions. So real quick, before we start, I just want to throw this in here. Shine by Trey Anastasio. Such a cool album that I found when I was doing my research for these top albums. And it came on my shuffle the other day, and I was like, no, I forgot to talk about it on one last podcast. So if you're a huge fan of Trey Anastasio and you were heartbroken that I didn't mention it, I'm so sorry. I meant to mention it, and please forgive me.
The world's a better place now.
All is at rest. Well, if you've never watched before, welcome. We're so glad to have you. And just to give you an insight to the format of the show, so a little later on in the episode, Brian and I are going to talk through each of our top 5 albums from the year 2006. We got some great music today. We're in 2006 is the last year of what I refer to as the golden era of modern music. So be very excited about that. And before we do that, we like to do a little segment. And last time we came up with the idea to do a segment to talk about our walk up at bat songs, because you and I both played high school baseball. I see that you're wearing
yes,
high school baseball t-shirt
from 2011.
Nice. Just
a few holes in it, but it's a good shirt to wear around the house and remember how awesome I was at baseball.
Yeah. I met someone new today, which is a rarity these days. Now I'm getting back to the world a little bit, and met 2 new people today, and he was talking about my baseball. He was asking about when I played baseball in high school. He's like, "Were you good?" And I was like, "Well, I was good on JV. I was real good on JV, and then varsity I was not so good anymore."
Yeah, I wanted to be good. I just never was good, but it was fun.
Well, it's a great sport. I mean, you and I, we grew up playing baseball. We're in the same fantasy baseball league.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best sport around, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. Most people in my neck of the woods like football, so it's hard to find some cool baseball peeps. But
that's
whatever.
Very true. That's very true.
You get walk-up songs in baseball though, which is the coolest thing ever.
I was going to say to my knowledge, it's a very unique thing for baseball that every hitter and pitcher gets to pick their own hype song.
Yeah.
That's sick. Just for them. And I know some players that really, really like music that are at the major league level will have different songs for their first at bat, second at bat, third at bat. So it's a really big deal. It's a cool thing that I know players at every level are really excited about.
Yeah, dude, it's the greatest. Makes you feel good, man.
Mm-hmm.
And before we start going through these, we played baseball at Watauga High School in Boone, North Carolina, and I bet me and you and maybe 2 or 3 other people were the only people who had walk-up songs that weren't rap or country.
Probably.
It was 95% rap and country.
I remember we were talking about, I think it was 2000 when you mentioned the Linkin Park album, right?
Yeah.
And one of my friends, Chris, had Paper Cut as his walk-up song.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah, I guess that kind of counts as rap.
Yeah, it's a little rap rock action. Yeah.
My friend Phil had Papa Roach. That was a classic one.
Nice.
What's that Papa Roach song?
Cut my life
there you go.
into pieces. The one with the F-bomb, of course.
Yeah, that they edit out with like a record scratch or something.
Yeah. We had one kid, David, who used Dark Horses by Switchfoot.
Oh yeah, I was actually there because that was your senior night. I think that I was able to make it to that game.
Yeah.
And,
so props to him.
Great tune.
Yeah, that's cool.
Great tune. Well, all right. Well, we're just gonna run through ours, and so we just to let you guys know out there, we played baseball in high school I played from 2007 to 2010. And what were you, Brian? Like 09 to 2012 or something like that?
Yeah.
So these songs are a little older, but I mean, we're talking early 2000s, so it's totally good. Yeah.
Dude, what are you drinking there? I saw you drink something.
Yeah, I'm drinking a little brew tonight because we're doing podcasts after dark. Usually record these.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure people knew it's nighttime.
I mean, I've been known to crack a brew in the AM on the holiday weekend, but
yeah,
it is 8:30 p.m. So totally okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a Copper Line Amber Lager from a great North Carolina brewery. So,
tasty.
Yeah. And I'll reveal it later, but I picked this glass because I uncharacteristically don't have a t-shirt for my top 5 albums today. So I've got this glass for one of your top 5 albums.
Thanks, dude.
So yeah.
Yes.
Well, cool. I tried to remember chronological order. I think I mixed it up a little bit, to be totally honest. And actually I just remembered one off the top of my head that I forgot to put on this list. So sorry, I got an extra one, Brian.
It's fine, man.
But my freshman year, I got to use Return to the Revolution by the OC Supertones. And I feel like we should make an extra playlist with these songs. We'll put it in the link.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Below. But Return to the Revolution, I loved it. It was the song that I had planned for years. I was like, when I get an at-bat song, it's going to be this one. Starts off with the siren and it has that awesome riff at the beginning. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I like to point out you have more songs than me because you played varsity for more years than me because I sucked.
I played varsity for 1.5, but we had the summer after my freshman year, we played 2 tournaments at home. And we got a different at-bat song for both tournaments.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I got some extras that way, too. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah, so my sophomore year, I was called up to varsity to pinch run. So, obviously never heard it, which is a bummer. I did the Small Print by Muse.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a nice upbeat rock song.
Nice.
But yeah, it'll be good having the playlist so you can see how pumped up it gets you.
Which album is that one from?
Absolution.
Oh, nice.
Which was in my top 5 in 2003.
I was gonna say that had to be featured on your list. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that was a good headbanger for sure.
Can't go wrong with Muse. Well, I'll go with, since I just remembered that one, there was those 2 tournaments and I used a different song for each one. The first tournament I used Freedom Fighters by POD. I think that was from the album Payable on Death. That was an honorable mention for me in 2003. And the second tournament I used Get Up by Bleach, which is a song that just has a really cool minor key riff up at the front, and when the vocals come in, it's like a big whoa. So I thought that was cool.
Sick. That's kind of like a deep track. Like we got pumped to our own songs. Everybody else was like, "Oh, dude,
what is this?
What is this?" Here's a good one for you. My sophomore year summer ball, I pitched, and when you pitch, you get a little bit longer of a song.
Mm-hmm.
So I did "Bullet the Blue Sky" by U2.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my favorite intros, and it takes like 30 or so seconds to build into the big guitar part. But yeah, that was a fun one.
Oh yeah, when that slide guitar comes in, that's
yeah.
Tight. That's
and
tight.
That drum, the way the drums start the song and the bass comes in, it layers really nice.
Yeah.
And
we had bit for those at our old field. I don't know what it was like at the new field, but at the old field, they had the subwoofers on the ground behind home plate. So when
Yeah,
you picked
dude,
the
I
song
remember that.
when you picked the song that had the big bass, it was like right into the back of your legs. Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
hitting.
So when people had their rap songs, all you hear is like.
Oh man. Well, going on sort of the classic rock thing, I guess U2 is kind of like at the very tail end of classic rock. But
Yeah.
I got called up for the playoffs after my sophomore year to varsity, and they said you need a song, and we just had one of my friends' iPods, and he was like, just pick something from my iPod, and we'll throw it on the computer. And I didn't know I picked the only song that I knew on his entire iPod, which was "Sweet Emotion" by Aerosmith.
I actually remember it. I remember you using that.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool bad song in its own way, I guess.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
What was on the iPod? Do you remember? Or just like didn't know anything.
Dude, it was like reading another language to me, man. I was like, I don't know what any of this is.
Nice.
It was like the one rock song that he had on there, I think.
That's hilarious. Just like all like random. It was probably like a bunch of hip hop stuff, and then like Aerosmith. Why not?
Yeah, hyped to that one random Aerosmith song.
Yeah. Going back classic rock even further back. My junior year, I used Helter Skelter by the Beatles.
Oh, nice.
Got to hear it once. I like pinch hit in a game at home, and I got to hear it once, and it was cool.
That's awesome.
Major throwback. Yeah. But that one's cool because that one, like a lot of at-bat songs are instrumental. That one starts with the vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blew everybody's mind.
That's a cool one that everybody I mean, like when you hear that song, you just get excited.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
It's like the original heavy metal song.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, this was probably the one that I heard the most because this was my junior year. That was the one full year I played on varsity. New Body by Audio Adrenaline. That's it starts with those kind of weird like rising synth sounds that
yeah.
And then the bass comes in.
And that huge boom.
Yeah, that's what I really like. I'm pretty sure it's like I don't know if it's like a door slamming that they put a ton of reverb on or like something.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. That's what I really liked about it when the guitar riff came in and had that in there. And
yeah. Nice, dude. Yeah, you had some good ones.
A lot of 90s Christian stuff when I'm looking back at there.
Yeah, get hype.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting hype, my senior year, I used Coldplay, and I was like, because they were like my favorite band in high school. And I was like, dude, I need to use Coldplay. I'm like, well, their songs are so mellow. And then they came out with the Milo Xyloto album, which was like more pumping. And I used Paradise when it goes into that big bass drop.
Yeah.
Like I cut out the violin intro, went straight into the bass drop.
Nice.
And I remember specifically my coach or one of our assistant coaches came up to me after a game. He's like, Brian, he's like, I just want to let you know, I like your song the best. Like everybody else's song sounds the same. I was like, yes. So yeah, I use freaking Coldplay. I'm probably the only person in the history of baseball to use a Coldplay song.
I was there. I watched you play a game where you had that song too. I remember that.
Yeah, I got a little playing time my senior year.
Yeah.
A little DH action.
Nice.
Yeah, so I heard that one a few times.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I always have mixed memories when I think back on high school baseball. I don't miss the pressure of the games all the time, but I remember our coach used to say to us that like when you think back on it, you're gonna miss the practices.
Yeah,
and he was right about that.
Dude, he nailed it.
Yeah, the practices were just playing ball and hanging out with your friends and
yeah, it was good
hard.
times.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I miss it, dude. But it was like we had a good high school team, and it was intense.
Very much so.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty hardcore. Yep. Like we couldn't talk on the bus ride home if we lost a game. Hardcore.
Yeah. I got yelled at and benched for talking on the bus on the way to a game two separate times.
I had one time I got yelled at. Like nobody was hitting well in batting practice, just like everybody should, just miserable. And this kid was just hitting little dinky grounders the whole time. Like, this is varsity practice. And he hit a little dinky grounder to me playing short, just went straight between my legs. It was like the final straw. And our coach was like, we can't hit. And then he turns around, looks at me, he goes, we can't field. And then he throws all the baseballs all over the place. And he looks at me and he goes, pick up the balls. That's high school baseball for you.
I kind of thought it was like that everywhere, but then when I taught high school for 4 years and I was around the baseball team some, I was like, oh, they got a pretty healthy culture going on here.
Yeah.
Nobody's going home with their tail between their legs.
Yeah. Good times.
But on the off chance that coach ever happens to listen to this, like, he also did a ton of great stuff for us as well. Like,
oh yeah, agreed.
He worked with us when we were kids, like before high school, and very a very shaping person, I think, in both of our lives for the good and the bad.
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, man, baseball, what a great sport. Love the songs. Good times, man. Good times.
Yeah, faux show.
Well, sweet. Great segment, man. I gotta say.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was a tight segment. Good memories. Well, as always, I've got a handful of honorable mentions before we dive into our top five. And I'll probably hit you up for a couple of these, Brian, because I know you like quite a few of these albums.
Sweet.
So these aren't really in any particular order, but these are my honorable mentions from 2006. Revelations, the third and final album, right, by Audioslave.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very, in my opinion, it's a lot more Chris Cornell heavy. I think for the better. Not that they like totally ditched the style of the first two albums, but I kind of like that Chris Cornell alternative rock songwriting style where he has the kind of unexpected chord changes and yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's I like all the Audioslave albums. I think they're all pretty consistently good. But the opening track, Revelations title track, it's freaking awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Such a great way to start it. And Jewel of the Summertime is one of my favorite Audioslave songs ever.
Oh, nice. Classic.
Funky. Yeah, good choice.
Well, thanks, bro.
Yeah, bro.
I've got here, this was one, The Information by Beck. I really, really love this album. It's probably my second favorite Beck album. And I kind of couldn't believe it didn't make my top five this year, but that's just how strong of a year this is. It's a pretty significant one. It's like 14, 15 tracks. And it's just super fun. Almost, in some ways, almost like the end of a Beck era where it's like he kind of started to transition into some different stuff after that. But
yeah.
And he had that real catchy, almost like pop hit, Think I'm in Love. That was the second track. Yeah, great album.
I remember him performing Nausea on was it SNL?
Yeah.
That was like one of the first times I was introduced to Beck, because they did that song and they did a really cool version of Clap Hands.
Yep, you're right.
Where they played like pots and pans at like a dinner table kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I can't remember what album Clap Hands is on. But
I don't remember either.
They were like, I remember Beck had it during Clap Hands. Beck had an acoustic guitar, and then the band was just playing like a turkey dinner. They were like sitting around the table, and yeah,
like literally like slapping a turkey.
Yeah,
it was pretty sweet. Yeah, I remember that well.
He's a great artist, man. He does some really cool stuff
for sure.
This is one I know you love, and I know one of the reasons it's not on your top five is just because you kind of kept live albums off your top five for the most reason. But Eels with Strings live at Town Hall in New York. You were talking about that in the last episode because you were talking about the Blinking Lights. Great record, great live album.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Eels, they're like my favorite band of all time. They do all their live shows are different. They always play their songs different. The tour I went to, they did like a classic like 4-piece rock band. And for this one, Eels with Strings, it was basically the lead singer and like a string, however many people, like a quartet or something. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like reimagination of a lot of the Blinking Light songs were on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Agreed. Fantastic record. Listen to it if you haven't. Very cool. Very cool.
I have it on DVD too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Probably the recording of Fly Swatter on that is probably my favorite Eels recording on any of their things.
it's pretty wicked.
When they go into that sort of extended, like weird kind of
Yeah, and
avant-garde thing at the end, and yeah, it's so cool.
the dude plays the saw. Pretty
Yep.
sweet. Yeah.
Yep. It's awesome. It's awesome. Let's see. A band that we've mentioned in honorable mentions before that I know you and I both like very much, Brian. Exit Lights by Falling Up. Another just nobody sounds like Falling Up. Super cool music. Influences from metal to electronic to pop to just kind of all over the place. Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Yeah, very cool band. Always liked them.
Good Monsters by Jars of Clay. Really, really cool Jars of Clay album. Jars of Clay, one of those bands that more or less changes their sound every album, and that one was definitely more of a rock sound for them than some of their other stuff. And the first two songs, especially like the first time you put that album on, you're like, man, they are rocking. Work and Dead Man. Yeah, really cool stuff. Love Jars of Clay. Great album.
Yeah, that's a really good one. More like Jars of Rock.
Oh. I was pretty sure I'm in my wife's office here, and right up there, and I can't pull it down because it's fastened up there. But we have the Good Monsters album cover that they all signed.
Oh, cool!
And they're all it's pretty cool because all their faces are covered in mud and stuff. And
yeah.
Katie, my wife Katie brought a silver Sharpie so it would show up really good on top of like the mud color. And yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's smart.
Pretty
sweet. I figured you were looking at something like that, either that or a bug. Like I'm losing him.
Yeah, a quick sidebar because it's a cool story. So we got them to sign that when we met them at a pre-show thing that they did in Charlotte one time when we saw them, and just like the nicest, most normal and cool dudes. Like they just talked to you, and they weren't in a rush, and they were like really happy to take pictures with people, and were really friendly. Yeah, so thumbs up to Jars of Clay, one of the coolest bands around.
Nice. That's cool, man.
Let's see. This is one, Brian, that I know you like. You turned me on to this one. Waiter, You Vultures by Portugal the Man, which is, if I'm not mistaken, kind of their first album. It's their first album with their singer, right?
It's their first album.
It's their first album.
They had like another band before Portugal the Man, like a heavy metal band, but this is their first album as Portugal the Man.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like the experimental nature of this album. I think that you mentioned it where this is one that you might not want to listen to from start to finish, but if you pulled any song from it, you'd be like, that's a cool song.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one a lot.
It's super far out, very progressive. And it's got a lot of gems on it for sure. But Portugal the Man's one of those cool bands. Like listen to their most recent album and listen to this one, you would never know it was the same band. They're like every album's got a different sound, and that was an interesting, bold way to start because it's weird. Yeah. They have a lot of cool like timing stuff on that one. The song "Marching with Six," I always like that one a lot. But yeah.
I mean, you get 4 guys from Alaska. They're all cooped up there. You know, what else are they going to do?
Yep. Just do drugs and see what happens.
Hey, good stuff comes out, man. You got to love it.
Dude, speaking of meeting bands, that's like the only band I've ever really met.
Oh, yeah?
Also, just like incredibly nice dudes. Like you always think you're going to be super nervous talking to the people that you idolize. And just had like a normal conversation with them and just like talked about music. got to meet their keyboard player and their bass player. So
Nice.
shout out for being nice guys.
I think the artists can do a lot to make you feel comfortable if they like don't mind being around fans and stuff, which is cool. I've gotten the chance to shake hands with my absolute favorite artist, Neil Morse, 3 times.
That's so awesome.
And the first time I was absolutely terrified. Cannot remember what I said because he's like my number one hero. And then the second time I was like, okay, redemption. Like I'm gonna act like a normal dang person.
Dude, it's hard, man. I always get nervous. I ran into Alan Stone at a music festival. Like literally, dude was just like walking around, like watching shows, and I was like, oh my gosh, this freaking Alan Stone. Didn't say anything to him. And then Dave Depper from Death Cab for Cutie was walking in downtown Asheville before a show, and he was a new guitar player for me at the time. I double took him. I'm like, dude, I think that's freaking Dave from Death Cab. So I looked up his picture. Like we were walking opposite ways. I was like, it's Dave. Me and my wife turn around and like run to go try to find him. He just disappeared.
Oh man, he Batmaned on you guys.
Yeah, he knew. He probably heard us. That's Dave.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah. All right, sorry, I got sidetracked.
That's my fault.
Let's see. Okay, this is halfway serious, halfway ironic. The Duchess by Fergie.
I did not see that coming.
So, no joke, I think Fergalicious is such a cool song. I mean, like, obviously, it's kind of goofy, but like, it's the background track is so cool, and they have that bridge that goes into like the old school like 60s rock and roll, that and it's just like and London Bridge. That's such a fun song. I could listen to London Bridge. Sometimes I'll like put it on when I have to do chores or something. I'll just have to like psych myself up to like vacuum or whatever. Like London Bridge, yeah.
That rules.
But yeah, I mean it's like there's songs in there you never want to hear again for sure. But there's some get hype tracks on that album for sure.
Dude, awesome.
Possibly the polar opposite of the Duchess by Fergie, Singkestra by the Devin Townsend band. This is, in my opinion, this is kind of the first awesome Devin Townsend album. I know that would be kind of sacrilege to some of his fans for me to say that probably, but this is where for me, he like really started to hit his stride of kind of what I look for in his sound, especially the first 6 tracks, like very eclectic, some really, really beautiful acoustic stuff, some really cool time signatures like you were talking about with Portugal the Man, really heavy riff rock song, Vampira, with some great screams in it, like just like quintessential for me, like the Devin Townsend that I love in my heart. So yeah, possibly the absolute opposite of Fergalicious.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And then my last honorable mention is actually your number 5 album from 2006. So I'm going to turn it over to you, my man.
All right, and that is The Face of Love by Sanctus Real. Woo. One of my favorite Christian rock albums of all time. Probably in my top 5 Christian rock albums. Like really, really good songs, really good flow. But the thing I like about this album so much is the lyrics. It's one of my favorite Christian albums lyrically. It's really, really heavy. The songs are about the tough stuff that a lot of people don't want to talk about, which you don't find in a lot of Christian music. It's usually like super positive. Like the opening track, I'm Not All Right. It's about not being okay, trying to get through difficult times.
Yeah.
The one that really hits me is Benjamin, the closing track, just about like people having to deal with death, and it's just like really strong, really powerful lyrics that make you think, they challenge you, and I really, really like that about this album. And it's also got one of my favorite Christian songs of all time, The Face of Love. Just paints a great picture, and me and my wife used that at our wedding. because we like that song so much. But yeah, dude, like just next level meaningful lyrics, which in a lot of modern Christian music you don't hear anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what really sticks out for me on this one.
Nice, man. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the song "The Face of Love." It's definitely got to be one of the best Christian songs of that decade for sure.
It's so good.
And I was super plugged into Sanctus Real. I mean, they were one of my absolute favorite bands in middle school and high school. And I saw an interview with them talking about "I'm Not All Right," that opening track on the album, which has such a nasty opening guitar riff. So cool.
Yeah.
And the original lyrics to the song, they were writing a song called "I'm All Right," like no matter like what bad stuff happens, like it's okay. And they were in the studio together, and they all just kind of like collectively decided, like, this is dishonest. Like we can't write a song that says this because it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, like, just adding the word "not" in there, make very powerful sentiment
I remember reading a lot of interviews for that album too, and just like various bad things were happening to people. Like one guy, I don't know which guy it was, but his dad had just died like right when he had a kid. So yeah, they were going through a tough time. But sometimes that creates like the best art. So
yeah. We were cool little tidbit about this album. So I've seen Sanctus Real live 3 times. The second time I saw them live was remember Winter Jam?
Oh yeah,
that's a new song used to do. So they were on a Winter Jam lineup, and I went with the church. I went with the youth group that wasn't my youth group. I can't remember which one it was. But we were running late, and I hate being late to stuff. You know me. How I hate
same
being late
here.
to stuff. And because we were super quick sidebar, because when you and I used to drive to high school together in the mornings, we were always like super early and on time, wanted to beat the traffic, and we would pick up one of our friends and we'd sit at the end of his driveway and just be like furious. Human waiting for him to come, and we wouldn't pull down the driveway. We'd make him like sprint up the driveway to come get in our car.
Dude, I forgot about that.
Anyways, so we were really late, and I was like, well, it's probably no big deal, like because I knew Sanctus Real was on there, but I was like, surely they won't play first, like they can't be like the opener, and they freaking were. So we walked in, and they were halfway through their second song. And they're playing "Don't Give Up on Love" from the Face of Love album. They were touring that album at the time.
Nice.
And but we got to hear him play a couple songs. And
cool.
So
I saw him at the Boone one, and that was when they were doing their big like worshipy thing. So it wasn't that great.
Yeah,
but it's all right. So I'm going to jump into my number 4 here because me and Kyle share an album, which is my number 3 and it's your number 5.
Yeah, man.
So I'm going to do my 4 and then we'll talk about the other one.
Perfect.
So my number 4 album is Mute Math by Mute Math. The debut Mute Math album. We've talked about Earthsuit on this before. This is like post Earthsuit. They took like half the band and made Mute Math. And they have such a cool, very unique sound, like a lot of electronic stuff. Darren King, one of my favorite drummers of all time, like honestly carries the band, which you can't say about a lot of drummers. Like I listen to Mute Math for Darren King, like let's be honest. And this album has got so many cool drum parts on it, particularly Chaos. I think that's some really cool drumming. The instrumentals, Obsolete and Reset, and they do a lot of really cool instrumentals. But one of the best live acts I've ever seen in my life. Like they're one of those bands where the album's good and you listen to it, but when you see them live, it's like it's unbelievable. They have so much energy and they're so precise. When I saw them on their Odd Soul tour in like 2011, 2012. And Darren King is an animal, as you know. He like duct tapes his headphones to his head. Dude, he busted his snare on the very first song.
Wow.
They played Odd Soul and he's just going and just like busted a hole through it and like had somebody bring him a new one. I was like, this is awesome. But yeah, they're super cool live band. And I discovered this album through one of our friends. And then we got hooked up with the live DVD for this album. And that's when I was like, dude, these guys are freaking talented. And they just put on a great show. But dude, like it's a great album. It's in my top 5. But yes, like I like the drumming a lot, and that's a big reason that I have it in my list.
Yeah, this is I mean, for how unique and I guess genre defying this album is, it's kind of amazing how popular it was. Because it was huge. I mean, like the song "Typical," they had that music video that was sort of filmed in reverse, and that got really popular. And I remember hearing the song like on commercial, like hearing that song on commercials, and all of our friends being huge fans of them at school. And when I think about this album, I think about you mentioned the one song already, "Obsolete," but that 1-2 punch of "Stare at the Sun" and "Obsolete," those two songs running into each other. That's like right in the heart of the album too, isn't it? Like dead
right
center,
in the middle.
Right? Yeah, it's so cool.
Great transition.
And I always really liked. I'm pretty sure it's the very last song, "Stalling Out," that kind of soft one.
Yeah, that one goes into Reset.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
Instrumental. Yeah, but it's like the last song. So yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That's a really good song.
Yeah, very great vocals by Paul Meany on that one. His vocals aren't always my favorite, but I think he really does an awesome job on that one.
Yeah, and Mute Math disbanded recently. I don't think Paul Meany is a great guy based on what I've read, but he's actually producing for 21 Pilots now.
Oh wow!
Which is they're like one of the biggest bands in the world, so they're still kicking around. But yeah, they're just a fun band for sure.
Yeah, I think just speaking of the Paul Meany thing. It's so hard to tell from the outside looking in. You hear stories and interviews and stuff, but I think he's a guy with a lot of vision, and sometimes it's very hard to work with people that have a lot of vision if they're very intense about it. And I know, I mean, you hear in his lyrics, especially like you mentioned, "Odd Soul," probably my favorite Mute Math album. So awesome, but the lyrics on that one, I mean, very obviously like. You read interviews with him about how he sort of got tied to the Christian music, Christian rock, like from the Earthsuit days, and he never really wanted to be in that label, but it was always an important part of his life. And then he battled with pressures that he felt with that, and like the kind of stress that put on. Like I kind of sympathize with him.
Oh sure.
But you know, you never want anybody to be in a bad situation where they're in a band where they don't feel safe, or like their ideas are valued and stuff like that.
I just remember Darren King quit right before they went on tour. And I was like, it's a little suspicious, but like you said, you don't know the full story, but you hear things.
Yeah. But sorry not to take away from the album. It's a super, super cool album. Really cool album cover too, with all their faces like lighted, like with the light out. And it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, let's hop on to my number 3 and your number 5, and I'll let you start this one.
Oh, why not? I just listened to it before we started it because I was like, oh, I want to listen to one of these, and I put that one on. "Shine On" by Jet. This is, in my opinion, the best Jet album. I know I'm definitely in the minority of thinking that, because I know people love the first album with good reason. First album's great. But this one to me is like such a honed rock and roll sound. It's really, really hard to put a rock and roll album together that's truly straight up rock and roll, that doesn't get boring, or that doesn't like rely on gimmicks or things like that to get you through it. This one is basically a perfect rock and roll album, in my opinion. I like I'm always a sucker for the starts and ends with the same sort of song kind of thing. They tease the all you have to do in that first track, and then "Holiday" is such a great song right out of the gates from that, and "Bring It On Back" track 4 is one of my favorites on the record, and as Jet always does, it's got some really pretty songs like "Eleanor." Yeah, great album.
Yeah, and the title track is massive.
Yeah.
So good, man. With that like choir or gospel choir, whatever comes in the last chorus, it's the best. But like you said, like I like the first Jet album the best, but they did 3 albums. They never changed their formula. Pure rock and roll. It kicks every single time. They nailed it, just like you said, dude. Like they make fun rock and roll over and over, and it never gets old.
It really doesn't.
But it's such a good album, and it's long too.
Yeah, 15
songs, almost an hour. But you don't get bored with it.
No, you know, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Excellent choice.
Sweet. Yeah, that's your number 3, my number 5.
Yes.
Well, there we go. I mean, it was short and sweet, but
we've talked about him like a few times already. So.
All right. Well, I'll slide on to my number 4. So my number 4 is Sound of Melodies by Leland. And Brian, I noticed today when I was looking at this album that it has a Japanese bonus track.
Yes.
Yeah. So harkening back to a previous episode of our podcast. Yeah. But Sound of Melodies by Leland, great album. Leland Mooring, the lead singer, one of the best vocalists in a rock band that you'll ever hear. Phenomenal tenor vocal, just crazy smooth voice with a huge range. So much fun to listen to. And the songs are great. It's a style of music. It's a style of rock that I don't listen to all the time. I guess it's probably kind of akin to like the style of rock that like the Killers did like back in their early days and stuff. But like, to me, it's really elevated. Like they super catchy melodies, great lyrics. The chorus from every song is like a chorus that will stick in your head. And there's a couple just gorgeous songs. Track 4, Tears of the Saints, it's probably one of my favorite songs ever. Beautiful Lord right after that, beautiful song. And it's got some really fun ones on there, like Hey, Lift Your Eyes, those are back to back. Yeah, man, this is a great one. Great record.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Leland, not gonna lie. And I remember playing the Tears of the Saints song at church a couple of times when you led a couple of times, and it's really good. And this is just, we've talked about this before too, but this period was such a good time for Christian music.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so good that I forgot about some. There's so many. There are so many good bands.
It really is. You can. I mean, it's like all genres where there's definitely like the cream that rises to the top, where you're like, oh wow, there's just a whole lot of cream in this period, a very thick layer up at the top of a lot of really cool bands. And yeah, like you said, we haven't talked about Leland before. I teased this last time. All 5 of the bands on my top 5 are ones that have not been in my top 5 so far.
Oh yeah. Sweet.
3 of them have been in my honorable mentions. We already talked about Jet. They were in my honorable mentions for their first album. But Leland is a brand new one. We've never talked about them before.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, sweet. I'll slide right on to my number 3. My number 3 is The Chess Hotel by the Elms. If this album had been a vinyl record, I would have warped it to death with how much I listened to this over and over again. I was just so taken by it. Actually kind of similar to Jet in style, like very classic, 2 guitars, bass, drums, rock and roll, not a lot of frills. Yeah, just couldn't get enough of it. So this is the Elms' 3rd album, and they got less and less produced with each release. And this was definitely like the sweet spot for them, where it was just kind of like raw rock and roll. Yeah, there's just so many good songs on this. Yeah, man, like just can't say enough. Great rock and roll tunes. I'll put some good ones on the Spotify playlist. Speaking of, if you're interested in hearing some of the tunes from the albums that we talk about today, we always put together a Spotify playlist with a few selections from each of the album. You can find that in the link below. Or if you're not a Spotify person, we'll definitely put a card up in the top right for a YouTube playlist for those songs as well. So feel free to listen to them if you don't just want to hear us talking about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got anything to say about the Elms or this album, Brian?
Yeah, I love it. It's so fun, and it's just good rock and roll, and it's a quick album. Maybe because it's so fun to listen to.
Yeah.
But I remember I really, really liked She's Cold.
Yeah. Great blues rock tune there.
Yeah, and this is one of those albums that is so strong out the gate, man.
Yeah.
Insta hooked.
Seriously, I mean the first
And it stays great.
The first 9 songs in a row. Number one, I'm the World is not my total favorite song. The very first track, it's super fun. It's a very fun opening track, but 2 through 9 are like such a great streak of songs.
So it's pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like tracks 1 through 12.
But like you said, they're short. I mean, they're like Who Puts Rock and Roll in Your Blood. It's like a 2-minute song. It's the second track on the album, and it's so good. It's like such a dirty riff, and it's got that nasty slide guitar solo, and then Nothing to Do with Love, the third track. That's like such a fun banging song, like that you just loved it. Like I wish that I could have seen these guys live and seen them tour some of these songs, because it had to just be so fun to be there.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the short songs. That probably offends you as a progressive rock guy.
I'll tell you what, man. I a lot of times, and we'll see this as we go on in the years. A lot of my more modern albums are really short albums, like 8-song albums, 9-song albums that are like 30 minutes, 35 minutes. Like I really appreciate an album that doesn't have a lot of fat on it. Or that, and actually, I don't have any prog this year.
Oh man!
I know, not in my. Well, I had in my honorable mentions. I had Devin Townsend, and that first Portugal the Man is kind of proggy a little bit.
Yeah.
But
you can't completely avoid it.
Yeah, nothing in the top 5 this time though.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm even talking about specifically like song lengths.
Yeah.
Like it's so impressive to me if somebody can write a 2-minute song, with so many different elements. Like it doesn't feel longer than it is, but it's just amazing how people can craft such a short song with so many cool things in it.
Agreed, man. Agreed.
Yeah. Let's knock my computer over.
Well, let's turn it over to you, man. What's your number 2 album from 2006?
It's Black Holes and Revelations by Muse.
Oh man.
And we just played a Muse song from this album, Starlight, on our YouTube concert a couple weeks ago. And thanks to everybody for checking that out. But this was like a big step for Muse in changing their sound, because their first 3 albums were pretty hard rock and stuff. And this one was a little more just cleaner, maybe like more thought out, instead of just like we want to rock hard. And this is the first Muse album I ever got, actually. And it's like it's got so many pretty songs in it, which you'd never heard much of from Muse before, like Starlight, Soldier's Poem, Invincible, just like really, really good, pretty melodies. Like who the heck is this band? Like, and I've talked about this before. Muse fans did not like this album when it came out, just because it was so different, but it's huge for them now. It's got Supermassive Black Hole on it. Take a Bow is such a cool opening track, and it's still got your hard rockers on it, like Assassin, and City of Delusion is one of my all-time favorite Muse songs. But it's super cool album. Just like really, really interesting songs. And Matt Bellamy, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. Dude's insane. And I think this album shows off his vocals on another level based on their first 3 albums. And this one has a Japanese bonus track too.
Hey.
I don't think I've ever even listened to it.
No, I've never listened to the one from the Leland album that I mentioned.
Yeah, it's just sitting there. Yeah, but I love Muse. And this is one of my favorites for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I think you nailed it with the vocals. It's like, to me, the older Muse stuff doesn't do it for me as much, and part of the reason is he's such a good singer, and his voice is so buried in those mixes, and
Mhm.
they really put some effects on it sometimes, and he just doesn't get the chance to shine. And like, it was such, I don't know if it was their decision or a producer's decision to be like, hey man, we got to push your vocal a little bit,
Yeah,
and like it was a definitely the right call. Like the dude is crazy talented singer.
I think this might have been the album where they got away from Warner Bros. And
Mm.
went independent. It might have been the next one. But yeah, definitely a step in the right direction, like production wise. And it's interesting you say that because they're actually remastering Origin of Symmetry, their second album. Just like you said, everything's kind of muddy. His vocals kind of buried. So they released their first remastered track from that, and it's like night and day difference.
Wow.
So that could be a revelation.
Oh. Yeah, such a cool band. Such a cool band. We saw them, my wife and I and our sister Paige, we saw them in Charlotte when they were touring the Drones album.
Mhm.
And I can't remember if they played anything from Black Holes or not. I have to look at the set list to
They
remember.
probably played Starlight and Supermassive Black Hole.
Probably.
I feel like they always play those.
Yeah.
I saw him on that tour, and I saw him on the Second Law tour, and the Second Law is my favorite
Yeah.
Muse album.
Oh yeah.
But like I was talking about Mute Math, Muse is a phenomenal live act.
Yeah.
Just like it's insane how perfect they sound.
And
It's like it sounds like studio quality.
yeah, I was going to mention what really stood out to me because their opening bands were Missio and 30 Seconds to Mars. And nothing against either of those guys, but they played every single song with backing tracks.
Mhm.
Missio didn't even have a full band out there. Actually, neither of them had a full band out there, and it was just so backing track heavy. And it's like, I'm kind of there to see live music, you know, like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then Muse came out and it's just the three dudes and they blow it out of the water. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I had such a newfound respect for them as a power trio of the sense of like, it's very easy to think about Muse as like the Matthew Bellamy show, which in some senses it sort of is. Like he's
Mhm.
definitely like a freak, super talented.
He's a good showman too.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
as an ensemble, like so talented and such a full sound out of just three guys,
Yeah.
which is not easy to do. It's not easy to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Every now and then they'll stick that little like mystery keyboard player in the back too. You just like see his top of his head like behind the drums. Like there he is.
It's Moby. Great album. Well, I'll transition into my number two, which is another insanely talented power trio, House of Heroes. This is their debut album, Say No More. And I guess I should say debut album in quotation marks because they technically had one before this, but the band considers this release to be their first album. It's kind of a re-release of a lot of tracks, and many of them are remixed, and there's a couple extra songs on there. Anyways, uh, nothing sounds like this album. I mentioned that with Falling Up before. House of Heroes, super different sound. It's a power trio where on most of the songs, the guitar, bass, and drums really kind of have like equal footing. So much of the time with the power trio, it's like the guitar and the bass and drums are the support. And these guys, it's very much not like that. I mean, like it's very difficult to find an album where the drums are just as important as the guitar, is just as important as the bass. Even like you mentioned, Mute Math, like obviously Darren King, insanely talented, and he really drives a lot of those songs forward. But like very guitar light on that album. And the bass player really gets to shine on some of the songs, but on some of the songs he's very subdued too. It's like this album, it's like they obviously worked so hard for all three of the guys to be integral to every track. And the songs are angry, and I really like it. This song, I mean, this was 2006, so like I was in the midst of my angsty like 8th grade, 9th grade. but it never wore off on me. Like I go back and listen to them, and it's not like, oh, that's what I used to listen to when I was in high school. It's like I still love this.
Yeah.
Like coming right out of the gates. I know you love that first track, Buckets for Bullet Wounds.
I used to play drum. I used to play along to that on drums all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But such a great album. Awesome song titles for some of the tracks too, like Make a Face Like You Mean It, parentheses, vampires. Metaphor in parentheses, you were the Judas of the cheerleading squad. All sorts of fun title tracks to go with just these angry songs.
Yeah.
And like you said, very, very meaningful and super cool lyrics, almost similar to Sanctus Real, Benjamin, you were mentioning. The last song, Angels and Top Hats, is kind of about dealing with tragedy, and like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do when it happens? And some really angry breakup songs and some angry songs about being lonely. And yeah,
I remember it well. I know I have an interesting fun fact about House of Heroes. Josh Dunn, the drummer from 21 Pilots, I'm a big fan of them and him as a drummer. He actually played live with them for a while. He was their live drummer for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, because I looked up a live video and I was like, dude, that's Josh Dunn from 21 Pilots.
Nice.
Thought that was kind of weird.
I'm pretty sure they have some other connection to 21 Pilots too. Like,
really?
I think what's the main dude's name in 21 Pilots? Whatever his name, 21 Pilots guy.
His name's Tyler Joseph.
There you go.
It came to me. Yeah, he's kind of a tool. So
I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, so I probably shouldn't be saying it on the podcast. But I'm pretty sure he played with them a little bit. And House of Heroes were basically like, dude, you need to go like form your own band. Like you've definitely got like your own thing going on, and you've got like a very clear vision. Like, so go do that.
Yeah.
And he became one of the most famous people in the whole world.
Yeah.
And so
that's hilarious.
That's good advice,
yeah,
I guess.
I'll fact check you on that later.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Could be wrong about that.
Sounds right to me.
Because they're from Texas too, right? 21 Pilots.
I think they're from Ohio.
Maybe I'm way off, man. Maybe I'm going crazy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it'll probably like this like story will probably take off, and everybody will think
starting rock and roll rumors, baby. Sweet. So that's my number 2, Say No More by House of Heroes. All right, the moment that everybody in the whole world has been waiting for.
Yes.
Number 1, Brian, what's your number 1 album from 2006?
All right, I teased this one a couple weeks ago. It's the Beatles. I said, how could you have a Beatles album? The Beatles. The Beatles and beer. This is, I don't know if this is popular or not. It's like a remix album or mashup album. It's called Love. It came out in 2006. It's just like a bunch of Beatles songs, reworked, mashed together, remixed. It's freaking sick, dude.
Yeah.
I listen to it all the time. So I've got some notes pulled up for this one because there's like a lot going on. But so George Martin and his son Giles Martin produced the album together. They had to get all the living Beatles permission to do this because they're gonna like change all their songs. And it's actually the last album that George Martin produced in his lifetime. So that's kind of a special little fact. But they brought the song, it's Tomorrow Never Knows and Within You Without You. They brought that one to Paul and Ringo, like super nervous, like, do you like this or does it suck? And Paul's like, this is freaking amazing. He's like, you guys got to keep doing this. And like that song in particular is so cool. So they take the drums from Tomorrow Never Knows from Revolver and they play it over Within You Without You from Sgt. Pepper. And like, it's so subtle. Like, you're like, okay, this doesn't sound right. Like, oh, that's the drums from Tomorrow Never Knows. It's a bunch of really, really cool stuff like that. And the thing that blows my mind about this album is like, I don't know if they had to change keys for songs or what, but they mash up together songs like perfectly to the point where like you're like I said, you're like, okay, what song is this now? Like guitar solo from this song from like a different song. Like it's crazy, dude. But it starts out with because just the vocals. They ditched the instrumental track completely. And it's like Beatles harmonies. Come on, man.
With those big gaps between the phrases and stuff
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Chills, dude. Like it's so cool. I've got a couple of my favorites listed here that I put on our playlist. Drive My Car and The Word. It's like perfectly mashed together. Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. That one goes into the song titles are so long I can't see. That one goes into Helter Skelter and something else too. But for any Beatles fan that hasn't heard this, like listen to it without looking at the tracks and try to figure out what songs are getting mashed together.
Yeah.
It's like expertly done to the point
really
that it's like it's insane. And like as a lifelong Beatles fan, it's just so cool to hear these songs this way. I know we talked about not liking like remixes and stuff like that, but like this is my exception.
This is on another plane. It's not like they just made like electronic versions of Beatles songs that already existed. It's its own thing. Like you said, it's kind of brain bending because you get, especially like, like you said, if you're a lifelong Beatles fans, you've heard all the songs 100 sometimes. And then all of a sudden there's something different about it and your brain's like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
I think the way I heard it marketed to me was like, if you have friends over to your house, put this on in the background and watch everybody start to freak out. But I mean, there's so much, like, there's so much stuff you can't even recount it all. Like one little thing that's coming to mind now is when Get Back is on there. And at the beginning of that, when they're kind of like vamping up that chord at the beginning of Get Back and all the instruments are sort of building in, and they play the big orchestra build from A Day in the Life underneath that, and it like blasts that big blast right when the vocals start, and it's just like something like that. It's just like, it's so cool. It's like, it's amazing. And then it's always funny to me too. There's a couple just like normal, like they'll just kind of plop a pretty regular Beatles song in there just at one point to almost like cleanse your palate a little bit.
Yeah. Like you can tell they worked on it super hard to make it have that like perfect flow. I mean, it's the Beatles producer too, so it's not like some random like DJ thought it'd be cool to mash up songs. Like it's the real deal. But yeah, dude, it's awesome. And I was looking at the tracks. They did Sun King backwards. They play that one backwards. So it's got a bunch of like quirky, like weird stuff in there too. But it's a good time for sure. Yeah,
it really is. It really is. And yeah, George, just to plug George Martin, you said not just like the cliche, like, oh, George Martin's such a great producer, like he did so much for the Beatles. Like he is truly and honestly one of the greatest producers of all time.
He's a
like,
genius.
Such a wealth of knowledge of so many different styles of music. And like if you read stuff about like the Beatles coming to him with like the most vague ideas of like, oh, I went to like so-and-so concert and heard this trumpet part and like I want you to write something like that and put it at the end of this song. And just being like, okay, fine. and then everybody's like, wow, the Beatles are so cool. And he's like, yeah, I did everything. I did everything.
Dude, that's why the Beatles are timeless though.
Yeah.
They're just so ahead of their time. Like they really were, especially when they got into their experimental stuff. And he was a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And this is just like a little extra secret sauce.
A little secret sauce.
Yeah, but it's awesome.
I wonder what you said is Giles Martin, his son, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what else he's done. That'd be an interesting thing to look into to see what else.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. I guess I'll flip it over to me for my number one. So my number one album from 2006 is Beauty in the Broken by Starfield. This is, in my opinion, the greatest worship album that's ever been put together. I think the only song on it that I'm not super crazy about is the very, very last song. But tracks 1 through 10 are truly like just masterworks of worship music. amazingly honest, well thought out, non-cliche lyrics that you can have repeated, meaningful worship experiences with, widely varying in style. That very first song, My Generation, is a real pumping rock song, to like breathtakingly beautiful songs like Captivate, Unashamed. Um, really, really cool alternative sounding songs with some surprising chord changes like Obsession. Um, and kind of a semi reworking of How Great Thou Art, like pulling in some words from it and some other things. And Great is the Lord, such a cool, like kind of modern hymn there. Yeah, man, we, if you know me or if you've heard the podcast before, I've mentioned that I lead worship at a church, and we've done every single song on this album at my church multiple times. Like um, it's the best. It's a masterwork.
Yeah, and you said they're like one of the best worship bands ever. We got to experience them live at a conference, a youth group conference in Washington, D.C., as the worship band every night for 4 or 5 nights or whatever it was. Dude, amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's just like such a great experience. I mean, they had us hooked every single night. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was like euphoric. I mean, we saw them, that was like the perfect time to see them too, because it was right after their third album. And so they were playing like all music from this album and their third album, which are definitely their two best ones.
yeah, oh for
Um,
sure.
and I
And I
remember,
remember,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say I got the T-shirt. I want to hold the hand that holds the world. I still got
Nice.
that one laying around somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't have a Starfield T-shirt. I blew it, man.
yeah. I should have. Freaking dang it. I
But
think it's way too small now.
I
But
remember too. There was that night I went in knowing that they were like my favorite band, and I was just so psyched. And um, there was that one night where they had that like 90-minute block for like a night of worship, and I was so psyched for that, because they were leading worship like throughout the conference, but they play like a couple songs here, a couple songs there, and stuff like that, and it was like this was their kind of concert. And Starfield's basically two brothers. It's Tim and John
mhm.
Neufeld, and they've had some rotating members that have played bass and drums and other things with them. But when they came out for the Night of Worship concert, it was just the two guys, and they came out with acoustic guitars, and immediately my heart sank. I was like, this was like our chance to like for them to like play some stuff and like really be blown away by it. And it turned into one of the most amazing worship experiences I've ever had. They basically played almost all covers from the 90s of songs that just like everybody would know off the top of their head. Did not put any words on the screen, and we're just like, close your eyes and just like do your thing. And it was awesome. So
That's
awesome.
so cool, dude. Didn't you request a song at DCLA, or did I
Good,
imagine that?
good call, man. I'd kind of forgotten about that. So I went to their merch table, and their John, who's their lead guitarist, and he sings mostly background vocals. He was at the merch table, and I said hi and shook his hand and told him that I thought that Unashamed was like the greatest worship song ever written. I was like, that's like set like I like not as like a request. I was like, I just need you to
Yeah.
know that this song is the best. Um, and they played it that night at whatever service that was that night. And who knows if that was because of me or if they had that planned. I don't know.
It's
But
probably because of you.
yeah, we'll say it was because of me.
Yeah.
But
Good
yeah, man,
times.
yeah, can't get enough of that one. The classic like uh South Park Christian band album cover for this one. They're like
Yeah.
standing in a field in front of a stormy background, like all looking very serious in different directions. So that's
What was that? What was that South Park Christian rock band?
Faith
What was
Plus
their
One.
name? Oh yeah, Faith Plus One. And the other Sanctified. That's good stuff.
Wherever I go. That's a great episode, man. That's a very funny
Yeah,
one.
that's really
Uh-huh.
good.
Well, sweet. Let's recount it, man. So we've got Brian's top 5 albums from the great year of 2006. Number 5, The Face of Love by Sanctus Real. Number 4, Mute Math, the debut record from awesome band Mute Math. Number 3, Shine On by Jet. Number 2, Black Holes and Revelations by Muse. And number 1, Love by the Beatles and George and Giles Martin. For my top 5, we had Shine On by Jet, Sound of Melodies by Leland, The Chess Hotel by the Elms, Say No More by House of Heroes, and Beauty in the Broken by Starfield.
Great stuff.
Good stuff.
Another great year.
Truly.
Yeah.
And I'll say, so before we plug next time, I'll do one quick plug here at the end too. Brian mentioned earlier when he was talking about Muse. A few weeks ago, we did Blue Turnip live from the basement. We played in the very basement that Brian is sitting in right now, but from a different angle, so you probably can't tell. But a different room too, I guess. One room.
It's
over.
different room, but like it's like right there. Yeah.
But it came out great. We had so much fun. We've never played an acoustic set like that before. So it was really, really fun to do something different and to bring the band back together after about 3.5 years. So we'll definitely put a link to that in the description. I'll put it in the card up there if you want to hear it. We play some originals. We play some covers. Brian mentioned we played Muse. We played Eels. We talked about that today. The Beatles, we talked about them today. If you want to hear a little Miley Cyrus, we'll play a little bit of Miley Cyrus. Yeah, so check that out if you want to hear kind of what Blue Turnip's about and what we do. And yeah, well, obviously next time, Brian, we're going to be talking about 2007. You got any sort of teaser or plug for the next time?
I didn't have one planned, but like I'm looking at my list, and I will say this is my first year where I bring in the metal.
Oh,
I'm a secret metalhead, and we got some heavy metal coming at you for 2007.
Can I say something to you, Brian?
Yeah.
I'm bringing in the metal as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'm thinking about that Jack or the Tenacious D.
Oh yeah.
No one can destroy the metal.
I'll say too, so looking at mine, 2007, this was the year I had the most trouble with because my own personal music library was very thin for 2007. So I went out and found a couple albums that I've never heard before that I really, really loved.
Cool.
It's definitely my most eclectic year. Ranges from metal to folk to jazz to pop to progressive.
Nice.
And we've got 3 female artists on my list from 2007, which I've been a little thin on female artists so far. So,
dude, all kinds of teasers.
Yeah,
making me nervous.
You better be nervous. You better be scared.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music, 2006 Top 5 Albums Edition. Check out our concert if you're interested. There's a link in the description and a link in the card up in the corner. And we'll see you next time when we talk about 2007.
Cool beans. Oh, my voice just cracked. See ya.
Peace out.